Since Hamas's attack on October the 7th, this committee, Mr. Chairman, has used its jurisdictional authority to investigate terror groups and also to hold bad actors accountable that threaten our nation and our allies. One finding that I find disturbing, I think we all do, is that there are U.S.-based nonprofits that continue to operate today, despite being suspected of providing support and funding to terrorist groups such as Hamas. And Mr. Chairman, just as you mentioned a few moments earlier, we've recently learned about a journalist, and I use that word in quotes, working for a publication called the Palestine Chronicle. Now, this is part of a 501c3 tax-exempt organization called People Media Project. And he was holding an Israeli hostages in his home in Gaza, including 3 of the 4 hostages that were rescued by the IDF in June. Congress, and I know the American people, won't tolerate domestic nonprofits taking advantage of the U.S. tax code to finance terrorism and extremism. This bill, the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties Act, will revoke the tax-exempt status of any organization deemed to have provided, keywords, material support or resources to a designated terrorist group within the last 3 years. This bill will also dismantle the financial network of terrorist organizations across the globe and prevent bad actors from taking advantage of our tax code. And the bill also addresses what I think we all see as an unacceptable flaw currently in the tax code, and that's one that penalizes American citizens who've been wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad. Over these last, hard to believe, 9 months, 10 months, almost 11 months now since the horrific attacks on October the 7th in Israel, we've learned about the terrible and unjust conditions of those being held hostage by Hamas, what they've lived through, and frankly, what they continue to live through. Now, right now, there are still numerous hostages being held captive in Gaza, including Americans. This is in addition to countless other Americans being held hostage right now by other foreign adversaries around the world. It's our responsibility to bring these Americans home and ensure that when they come home, they don't have to deal with IRS bureaucracy. This bill, the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties Act, I'm proud that it's bipartisan, I'm proud that it's common sense, and I'm also proud that it will make much needed improvements to our tax codes. I do encourage all of my colleagues to support this important piece of legislation. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you holding today's markup, and I'll yield back.